Hello and welcome back. My name's Adrian, and today I've got the week number 1 of the October kit. We've got several great new glosses for you this month, and we've got 4 really fun projects. And today is the duck we have here, and we've got a bird at some point. I'm going to go ahead and
do the tracing here so that we can kind of have an idea of what this month's projects will be looking like.
So we've got a little bird here. We've got a lemon
plant over here. This one's a little square, so you can modify that one if you want to in order to, you can put it into a picture frame or something like that if you wanted to kind of make it a little bit bigger or smaller, if you found a picture frame that you liked.
And so this is sort of a little vine thing. Got our little lemon right here with a little leaf there. And hey, Mary Beth, thanks for joining. Bobby, hello. Homemade, hello. Mary Langworthy, hello to you all. Hope you all are doing well. And we've got our little bonsai tree here.
And this is probably one that I'm kind of most excited for this month. It looks pretty cool. And we've got some pretty nice glass choices here for these projects. And today is the very first one that we saw. Go ahead and get this little bonsai tree
all traced out. And so that is kind of what we're looking at for the month. And so we can also review our glasses here. Go ahead and set these patterns to the side for now. I'm actually going to go ahead and separate these. There we go. All right, got our little duck here. And we've got a little bit of yellow here. We're going to be using that in sort of the beak area. We've got a nice green here. That's going to be kind of throughout the little feathers and stuff. We've got a streaky kind of white clear. And we've got a pretty nice dark brownish glass. So we've got some pretty nice glasses for the month. Now for the little duck here, we are going to be doing it like this. We're going to have these, let's see, these two as white pieces. I'm going to do this one as a green. We're going to do these as brown. This is a green, this is a green, this is a green, this is a yellow, and these are brown right here. And we're going to try to do a little eyeball, something like that, right there, trying to make it look, you know, like a duck. Maybe not right there, probably closer, like, yeah, right there, kind of closer to the nose. So this is kind of, so disregard this one. We're going to try to do something with a little bit of a thicker bead right there. So that's just kind of what we're going to be trying for on this pattern today. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to go ahead and indicate which direction, if we can, to try to get these to be in a certain direction, if it's even really possible. Like this one, for example, it's pretty random. So what we're going to probably want to do here is, this is a pretty white and clear streaky. So I'm going to try to get a little bit more of the white areas if I can in this particular panel. They're very, it's a small, you know, we're doing them very small again, so it doesn't use up as much glass. And it shouldn't be too difficult to get the correct, you know, so for in this case, we want it to be white as much as we can. So I'm going to use that little spot right there. And then I'm going to place, I got one more little spot. I've got enough white in this piece where I can kind of do it like that. And let's see, so the white is good. Let's go ahead and get the green out. And for this month, they are all Oceanside glasses. And I believe they're all smooth once again, so that will be pretty easy for us to make sure we get all of the copper foil adhered really well. And so this is a green, so we're going to just try to place these where we can get them as efficiently as possible. And again, we do have our little lines indicating that the which direction we want that glass to be. And Michael, happy to help. Glass chat is going great on the school group. I'm glad. I'm really thankful for everybody participating in the Stained Glass Mastery community. And if you're not familiar, that is our online stained glass community where we've got artists and of all the skill levels. So we've got people helping other people, people asking questions, sharing projects. And of course, if you want to do these projects with me, you can choose to purchase the kit, which comes with all of the patterns and glass needed, or you can download the free pattern on from that school community, and you can just get it for free. So if that sounds like something you are interested in, I'll leave a link in the description, and you can check that out. And so we're doing quite well so far. Plenty of glass for these smaller projects. And we are going to go through, finish placing. We got a few more of these brown pieces to place. And we've got a really nice palette for the month. I'm really thinking that everything's going to look really good by the time we are all finished. So this is pretty much the last of all of our pieces here. Got everything all placed down. And we are ready to start cutting. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside for the moment here. And we're going to get out our glass cutter. Go ahead and set this over to the side. Right. Go ahead and grab our glass cutter. So I like to use the pencil grip. I normally kind of stabilize this little cutter head because it's sort of free rotation. And so I'll just stabilize it and pushing down with a consistent pressure and creating a little score line. You can see it really obviously on this piece. And then I like to just tap it from the back side. So I'm kind of tapping it like this all the way, but from the back side, trying to separate that score to get it all the way through the glass just like that. So we can set this glass aside. Hopefully we won't need to do any recuts, but if so, we have plenty of glass. Hey Barbara, thanks for joining us, and thank you for the reminder to everybody. If you are enjoying this, so please give it a like. And if you're not subscribed already, please go ahead and do that too. It helps me out here. And we're going to go through and finish separating all of our pieces. A few taps from the bottom. Separates like glass. Now this one, I did kind of place it in a sort of less than ideal spot. I wish maybe, I could have probably placed it over here or over here, but I think I can manage to get this. We're just going to have to kind of take our time with it. And so what I did, at first I kind of thought about doing it like this, but I felt like that was kind of too sharp, so I started it from over here. So it just makes this part less likely to break through here. And I kind of eased it over here too. So I'm going to give us a shot. I'm so surprised. You can literally see it starting to just chip out. This is being stubborn today. There we go. All right, we got it. A little bit extra care. So that's how we got this little piece out right in the middle of that edge. And that'll keep the rest of this glass in a good condition for us to use in our other projects. So it's worth it to just take a little bit of extra time there. And, oh, we're having a problem with the audio? Okay, I think it should be better now. I just went through and changed that little thing occasionally that camera sort of has a double audio. I'm not sure why. Let me know if it's better now. And so here we are, going to go ahead and get started with the actual scoring of the rest of the glass here. And so we will, using our little templates here, and again with the scoring tool, we're just pushing it right on the edge. And I'm not doing the entire piece in one pass. I sort of take it a few edges at a time, and that seems to make it a little bit easier. And actually, I like to do all the scoring first. So I'm not going to do all the breaking yet, or any of the breaking yet. I'm going to finish the scoring, and we'll go back and do the breaking. Now, one thing actually before we go through and score all the pieces, I like to go through and separate any of the pieces from the adjacent piece. And the reason why is because when you're scoring the glass, sometimes it can break one of its neighbors. So for example, you've got this here. If I scored this, it could break through the glass next to it and break through these pieces. So we want to avoid that. So I'm going to do a bunch of scores and then separate them, and then it will work out a little bit better for us. So just taking our grocers here. There we have it. And Valerie, hey, how's it going? Thank you for joining us. Bought the safety brake a few months ago, the Morton safety brake, and it can break out severe curves. I'm going to have to check that out. Looks like Barbara is also endorsing the Morton safety brake. I know that we are a distributor of a lot of these Morton products, so I'm going to have to check that out. I think I've got one of their representatives coming in to visit our shop, I believe at the end of this month. So that is an interesting deal. Oh, look, we had a little bit of a weird break, but we've got enough glass here. I think we can still use this piece. So sometimes the glass won't break along your score. It's just kind of the way it is. And with that, we've got all of our pieces separated. So what we're going to now do is we are going to finish all of the scoring, and then we'll go through and start separating all this glass. And I'm going to have to check this tool out. The inside curves are normally a bit of a challenge, and I think it's common for most people to sort of have that issue. So I'm going to have to definitely check that out. So again, we're just taking our scoring tool right up against the edge of the template. And if it's not perfect, it's not the end of the world. We are going to go back and do a lot of grinding anyway. So it'll save you some time the closer you get it. But if you don't get it perfectly, again, not the end of the world. Remember, when you're scoring, you're going to want to keep the scoring wheel 90 degrees up, perpendicular to the glass. So that will give you kind of the most consistent break. If you sort of angle the cutter at an angle like this when you're cutting, you'll not get a perfect break, which is not the end of the world, because we're going to go through and flatten those edges anyway with the grinder. But it's a good practice to try to get it right the first time. It'll just save you a little bit of work. And no problem at all, Barbara. Happy to help. Definitely doesn't always go perfect, even for me, and to be quite honest with you, for anyone. No one's going to get every single project perfect every single time, or even most of the time. Almost all the time you're going to have little issues here and there. So not a problem. And we're just kind of making our way around all these pieces. Always a fun week when it's our first week of the month. Got our new palette, got our new little patterns, and we can really see what we've got in store. I believe the week 2 is going to be our bonsai tree. So if you're wanting to see that one, make sure especially to tune in again next week. And we do try to do these live streams, at least for now, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Check the Stained Glass Mastery community for the most updated days and times for the live streams. Okay. All right. Let's make sure we've got everything all. Now, sometimes we have these inside curves. I like to remove as much of this as I can. And even beyond that, I like to do a few extra little sort of step downs in the cut, and that just makes it a little bit easier for us not to run that cut right through the center of our piece we want to save. Just like that. There we have it. Got our first piece. I'm going to go ahead and set this to the side. And Valerie is excited about the bonsai tree. Awesome. Yeah, me too. It's looking pretty good. Pretty cool, pretty fun project. We got another couple inside curves here. So again, I'm going to try to remove as much material as I can to just give us the best chance of getting right up to our score line and not sort of making a mistake. So we're trying to save that little tip, but it's going to be fully covered anyway, so we pretty much saved it. Not too bad. Like I said, it's going to be pretty much fully covered by solder anyway, but it's better if you've got a little bit of copper foil in there. And we're making pretty good progress here. Now, when these pieces are kind of small, you really need a second pair of Grosing pliers, because it can be a little bit difficult for your hands to grab onto everything. So I've got our other pair here, and I got them all oiled up after last episode. So it is ready to go. And it just really makes it a little bit safer separating this glass instead of trying to hold on to a tiny little piece with nothing but your hands. Again, we are going to clean these all up on the grinder. And these bigger pieces are a little bit easier. You can kind of hold on to them with your hands a little bit more safely. And this one is an outside curve, so those are really unlikely to break in a way that would be really disadvantageous for your piece. Really shallow inside curve, straight edge. So these are not too bad. I try to limit how much glass is between the part that I'm, the score line, and the edge where my pliers can fit in. Like this one, for example, if it didn't have a shorter amount of area to get my pliers in close, like if I had to kind of reach like this over this part of the glass, it'd be a little bit harder. Thankfully, I can just kind of get a little bit closer from the side, but some pieces, there's a lot of glass around that score line area. Like this one, definitely going to hold on to this with the other pliers. I want to see if I can get it kind of like this. So so this one did break a little bit off. See that, all that pattern there? So what we're going to want to do next time is cut this and get us a little bit closer. It'll make it a little more likely for us to get it on the first try. And these are called mini Grosiers. The size, I think it's maybe about 1/4 inch, but it's very handy for those really tight inside curves. So that's really what I like them for the most. And we've got plenty of green glass, so it's really not a big deal. I'm just going to put this about right here. I'm just going to snip off a little piece here, and we'll continue on. And I am going to go ahead, I'll set this aside for now, I'll finish breaking all these, just in case we have another piece we need to recut. Go ahead and grab our other pair of grosiers. I really want to avoid getting any injuries here. So that is what we will do. Oh, this one broke off a little bit wrong too. I think we might have enough little glass here. Let's see what we've got. This one's long enough, I think. I think it might just barely work out. I think that one will work, just barely. Sometimes it's a little bit tough to cut on the smaller pieces like that. We're going to give it a shot, see what happens. We just happen to have a piece that would barely work out. There we go. Okay. And these little grosiers, they definitely come in handy. They're called mini grosiers. We sell them on our website. They're about the same price as the normal ones. And definitely recommend having a pair. There we go. Slowly but surely, getting all of our little pieces knocked down here. All right. And we've got 2 pieces to recut so far. Not too bad. And after I break a piece, normally I'll try to kind of shake off any little glass debris that might still be in there. You know, in the jaws of the tool, because that'll kind of start to scratch and crunch and not give you a great contact when you're ready to start your next piece. So now, before we cut, I'm going to go ahead and sweep off all our debris here. And we are going to recut these 2 pieces. And what I want to do here is try to make sure we don't make that same mistake again. I think the way we've got it cut here will keep us covered. Really, it was where it broke on that inside curve was kind of the problem. And we've got, I removed quite a bit of the material doing it that way, and then I'm going to go ahead and do another one right here. This will just make it that much more likely that we're not going to have any problems here. And we'll just slowly remove it till we get down to our score line. And we've got a few rough edges here. We're going to end up grinding that all down nice and neatly. And we've got one more piece right here. We're going to just take our cutter, get it as close as we can. this one is pretty small, so I don't think we're going to need to do any step down cuts here. There we go. A little bit rough around the edges, but we're going to grind it all down nice and neat. And with that, all of our glass is pretty much cut. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, give our area another sweep. And thank you, Valerie. I appreciate that. I always appreciate the orders for the glass and tools. And the green glass is pretty, Mary. I think it's going to look pretty good on our duck here. Probably be a little bit better for the duck if it was a little bit of a darker green, but I think it will be looking pretty good still. So as usual, we've got our little grinder here. I'm going to go ahead and switch this to our overhead while I adjust this camera. And make sure got a pretty decent view here. There we go, looks pretty good. Go ahead and put our little block, keep our foiler from getting all dirtied up. And just shoot a little bit of water onto our sponge here, trying to get the wheel fully saturated. Make sure that this thing is actually on there nicely. And we'll go ahead and get to grinding. So I've got a 1-inch diameter grinder head on here right now. And I think this should pretty much get us done everything that we need to do today. I'm actually going to go ahead and move this up a little bit higher. First piece. I'm going to go ahead and dump it into our little cup of water. I call it a little glass bath, trying to keep all that glass dust from sort of drying up. Makes it a little bit harder for us to clean it off when all that glass dust starts to really solidify. So I try to avoid letting it. And to do that, I just drop it into that little cup with some water. And a lot of the people in the community use a little tray, and that makes a little bit more sense, I think, because it's kind of shallow but wide. So it doesn't need much water, and it'll pretty much cover up any glass shapes you need. So that is something I do plan on getting at some point. Haven't quite picked one up yet. And especially with these little patterns, I like to do an extra little round of grinding after I get down to the pattern, just to make it fit that much better. If they're floating together just a tiny bit, that's alright. It'll be easier to fit them together with a tiny float instead of them literally kind of banging up against each other. So if we can, we're going to want to do something like that. All right. Another piece. And we're moving on. And Valerie mentioned you don't want that ground glass going down your drain. That's true. It'll kind of get, it'll solidify sort of into a hard rock, really, and it can be a problem. And this is a really tiny pattern. Sometimes when the patterns are really small, they don't stick really well. So you kind of have to do some grinding, put it back on, compare it, and keep going until you kind of get it down to the correct shape. And again, I like to just do a little extra grinding at the end just to try to really make sure I'm not going to have any problems. We're making pretty good progress here. These smaller panels, they're a little bit, there's less linear inches when they're smaller. So the grinding is one step that does go by a little bit faster. I would say the cutting is probably a little bit harder, even though there are fewer linear inches to cut. It still is a little bit harder to kind of handle them. But again, it just kind of takes a little bit of patience. And when you're doing the project, especially if you're a beginner and it takes you a little bit longer than it is me, that's all right. You can kind of pause it and sort of resume as needed. It's gonna happen, but you'll definitely start to speed up and you'll catch up to me, and you'll probably be able to do these at the same sort of rate that I am at some point. So that is something to consider, and not to get discouraged over. If you're kind of noticing something like that's happening. And Valerie mentioned the smaller pieces are the hardest to grind. You got half of these ground into some of your fingernails. Yep, it happens. Especially right now, I probably need to cut my nails. They're getting a little bit longer than I like. But if you've got longer fingernails, yep, I'm sure it'll catch your nails there. And if it takes down the glass, it'll definitely take down a fingernail. And Mary suggested trying the Nick Grinder's Mate for smaller pieces. I'm going to check that out. And you'll notice too, I'm not wearing gloves here. Probably not the best idea. And it's very unusual I have any issues here, but if you do not feel comfortable without gloves, just be sure to put them on because you don't want to be cutting your hands if you're worried about that. Especially if you're a little bit newer, you might not really have an idea exactly how to handle that glass without it, getting you. And even sometimes I've been doing it for so long and I still get little cuts here and there. So no matter what, you're not immune, but might not be a bad idea. And Valerie mentioned that she's got it, but it feels awkward. I haven't tried it before. And yeah, it's possible that you might have to sort of learn it a little bit better. I know one thing that does seem to help is if the little table that the grinder head is inside of has the smallest area between the grinder and the table, then it seems like it's a little bit easier to grind those pieces. But if it's got a big area, they just fall right in. That can be a big pain. Looking pretty good. Got a few more pieces here. Just pressing that glass into that grinder until we're all the way down the template. This little radius right here is just right, just barely fits in there. Sometimes what I'll do, especially if the piece has a lot of rough edges here and there, I'll go through, knock all those down, and then I can do a little bit of my more precise finish grinding, trying to get it all to the right spot. But you can kind of push on a glass that's been grinded down a little bit, and it's a little bit safer to handle. It's got all those sort of sharp edges removed. Alright. Making pretty good progress here. Looks like we got our last piece here to grind down. And then we are cleaning and checking the fitment of them all, making sure that we're not going to have any problems after we get foiled. I always recommend checking before you start foiling because you can always change it at that point. Whereas if you foil it, then you got to refoil it. It's a little bit more effort to do it that way. So I recommend getting it done and checked out first, and then doing your foiling. And after them getting all cleaned and fit together, we'll start on our Magna foiler. And so we've got, I missed one piece here. It was underneath the grinder. So a little bit more water. And this one I'm going to go ahead and knock all the edges down and then go back and really do the nice finish grinding here. piece, I should say. All right. Got our little pieces in our little cup of water here. So what we're going to want to do now, and I'm going to go ahead and switch this around. We're going to want to, what I like to do is take a couple pieces out, put them onto our little rag here, and we're going to try to get them from being too wet, and then get another rag, and we can start to really dry them off nicely. Try to keep as much water up off our pattern as I can. See if I can get this into a spot you'll be able to see. This will give you the first idea of what the pattern is going to look like here. Okay, let's see. Got our first piece. It is a green. Goes right here. All right. And at the end of this, I'm going to have to get a few quacks out of everybody for our little duck here. Got our brown piece right here. Another one about right here. And this might be one of those you might have to really kind of look at in the light, because this brown gloss, it is pretty dark. I think it'll look good for, especially for our bonsai tree. Nice, really dark tree trunk type look. And it's funny, they actually have those little tiny mini bonsai trees. If you never maybe have seen one, you should look them up. They're really kind of cool looking. I've been meaning to buy one. There's this lady, she sort of sets up on a busy street, an Asian lady, next to where I live, and she sells them, and they look pretty cool. I mean, they look really cool. Been meaning to get one for years. See her, she got a little stand with like 30 of them set up, with a medium size, a small size, and then the larger size. And that is always a pretty cool thing to see. Been meaning to get one for a long time. I bet they're not cheap, but I think it would be a fun sort of thing to have. There we go. Got our little whitish piece. Sort of a little white fur part up underneath the little duck here. Trying to dig out all of our little pieces here from our cup. We've got more in there. Got it. All right. And got a little green piece right here. Trying to make sure these are really dry, because the foil will have a bit of a hard time adhering if these pieces are wet. So that could be a bit of a problem. That's a good question, Mary. I don't know if they have to be trimmed or not, if I'm being honest with you. I assume they'll continue to grow. But honestly, I don't know. All right. It's looking pretty good. And interestingly, there's either another piece in here. Oh, here it is. Okay, good. Make sure to clean those edges really well. That's the main point of contact for that copper foil. Alright, our last piece here all cleaned up, cleaned and dried. Take a look and see what we got. So it's looking pretty good so far. Need to kind of make sure to pull everything nice and tight together. There we go. And we're going to do a little, try to do a little eyeball about right here still. There we go. And it looks like Valerie confirmed that they do need trimming. And Mary mentioned this looks like a teal duck. You know, I really don't know much about the ducks there. I guess that must be a breed of duck, right? Something like that. Kind of just, I thought, I didn't realize there are multiple ducks there. It's pretty cool. Of course, we're going to bring out our Magna foiler here, which I have been enjoying. We're going to go ahead and get all of our pieces off. We're going to foil them, set them over here, and then we've got to do the burnishing. Oh, you know what? I meant to also get a little bit of extra. I'm going to do these first with the eye so that I don't forget. So what we're going to do, pull a little bit of this forward, go ahead and snip a little bit off. Get our first little coat of foil on here. And Valerie mentioned that, yeah, I do know Valerie got one and she is liking it, so I'm glad that you're liking that. I think it saves a little bit of time. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and, I just like to do this little gradual fold over thing on those inside curves, try to keep it from getting torn. And then what we're going to want to do here is, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and burnish this so I don't forget. I'm going to burnish it, and the only reason I'm taking this extra care right now instead of doing them all sort of in a systematic fashion is because I want to plant on a little bit of extra foil here for a little eyeball, but I don't want for it to be in the wrong spot. I don't want to forget, and I don't want to put some foil onto unburnished foil. I want it to all be pretty much stable, and I think to burnish it first is the best thing. And then I'm going to go ahead and put it kind of like where I made my little mark here. So I'm just going to fold a little bit over, snip that down, and I think we're only going to put the foil on one side. And what we're going to want to do, I'm going to leave that right there for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off. We don't need this side. And Barbara mentioned that she gave up on her tabletop foiler. Yeah, the tabletop foiler is not my favorite. A lot of people love it, but I personally did not like it. I couldn't really get it down. Not that it didn't work, I just personally couldn't get it down. But the Magnafoiler, I think it saves me a ton of time. And especially when we're doing these live streams, they have to be in a relatively timely manner. I would say 2 hours is still a pretty significant commitment, but I think 4 hours is a lot more. So, not that it would take that much longer necessarily, but it would be substantial. Probably, maybe an extra hour. It's honestly hard to tell. I'm not the fastest hand foiler, so that's kind of the reason why, at least for me, it really gets a little bit of a efficiency boost. And Valerie mentioned it took a few tries to get used to it, but love it now, and it's easier on the hands. Oh, that's good. I'm glad that it's working out for you so well. I would say it's definitely worked out for me very well too. And I think a lot of people would benefit from it, especially if you find foiling to be a bit of a tedious, daunting part of the process here. Applying the foil anyway. You still got to burnish it. And still got to do, of course, all the burnishing, and so it's not, you know, a miracle worker necessarily, but it does have a benefit for sure. Now, what I want to do here is get this foil placed on here. Let's get this thing burnished down as much as we can. And so this is looking pretty good. So now we need to really get the little eyeball to just look correct. We don't want it to look weird or anything. So let's see here. I think it needs to be pretty subtle. Probably something, I think that might be even too big. I'm talking about just a little bit more. That might even be too big, we'll see. But just a tiny bit more. Just to really indicate we got a little eyeball there. And we can put a big glob of solder when the time comes. Alright, we'll go ahead and grab our little, let's see, I've got a little bit of Sharpie on there. I'm wondering if I wire brush that a little bit, if it will kind of make that Sharpie not be there. Let's give this a quick shot, see what happens. That worked out pretty well. And Valerie mentioned that the Magnafoiler cut the time almost in half for her, so that's pretty nice. That's a pretty good benefit there for sure. Now I think that we need to cut this maybe just a little bit more. I'm just going to cut it down so it's not as rounded at the bottom, just like that. I think that will do. So we've got our first two little pieces here done. I'm going to go ahead and keep those right there. And so what we did there is we just overlaid a little bit of some foil, and then I just kind of put them together, marked with a Sharpie about where we wanted the eye to be, and then we just kind of cut that down. And that seemed to work out pretty good. There we have it. This is ready for burnishing. Oops, that's a little bit too much. Take a little bit off there. I try to get about a 1/4 inch overlay if I can. A minimum of an 1/8 if possible. And, you know, probably 1/4 inch is probably good. And anything over probably doesn't matter too much. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I wouldn't say it's really necessary either. And Barbara mentioned about getting the Magnaflow and maybe trying to sell the tabletop. You could give it a shot. I mean, people want to try them out. So, you know, you might be able to make a little bit of money back from it. Because the Magnaflow, it's not too cheap. I think it's around 150, something like that. It's maybe more, maybe less. I honestly don't remember exactly. But it's not, you know, it's not super cheap, that's for sure. Definitely more expensive than just using your hands, but I do think it is a nice little benefit. I go ahead and move this camera a little bit closer, give you a little bit of a better view. What's going on here? So that's this little sort of, there's a little bit of a force going this way, centering that piece of glass on that foil. Oops. Perfect time for me to make a mistake. And it works really well even just as a dispenser as needed, in case you do something silly like that. Really centers the foil out pretty nicely. There we go. Yeah, that tabletop, it sounds about right, around 75 for that, which is not cheap, but some people do really like it. And I think that if I had no other options, I did try the tabletop foiler. It did still save me a little bit of time. It definitely didn't like burnish and do all that at the same time. I apply the foil and burnish it. It definitely still had to be burnished, but I think that it still saved a little bit of time compared, you know, for me, compared to just hand foiling. So I didn't hate it. I just think that there are better options personally, including this Magnafoiler. I think it's a little bit of a better option. There we go. And Valerie mentioned that she thought about the tabletop foiler, but after seeing how easy I made the Magnafoiler look, chose to go with that instead. And the best deal out there is on our site. Paid $107 plus 21 for shipping. Yeah, I think that we do put these really competitively priced, if I'm not mistaken. Very competitively priced. There we go. I kind of tend to fold over the edges, especially on these really tiny pieces, as I push it through the foiler. That kind of helps it from getting all caught and stuck, which I do find too, if you don't have to hold the piece with one hand and fold it with the other, you can kind of fold it with both hands because the foiler is holding it. So you kind of have one hand sort of free, and that makes a bit of a difference for sure. Gives you just a little bit more control. At least that's kind of what I find as I use it. Just kind of maneuvering the piece in and out of the foiler. You can kind of press the lever down, it opens up this part here, and then you can take it out. And Valerie is mentioning that our prices are very reasonable, especially on a lot of the glass, even with boxing charges. I appreciate that. We do try to keep that glass very inexpensive too. And we even have some weekly sales or monthly sales sometimes. So I know we've got an email list. If you sign up for an account on our website, as long as you don't opt out of the email marketing, you'll automatically start to receive those discounts. So sometimes we'll do like an Oceanside glass sale or different manufacturers' sales. So that's always something to look out for if you're trying to get a little bit of a better deal. And we do have Black Friday coming up here in a few, gosh, I guess it's going to be, about 8 weeks, something like that? It's going to be a little while till then. But I know I look forward to Black Friday. In case there's something I want to buy, I like to keep my eye out, see what kind of sales might be going on. And there we have it. Our last piece is foilered. Oh, and Barbara mentioned that we're sold out. Which product are we sold out on? I'll have to check on that. Honestly, I don't really, to be honest with you, operate on the supply center side. I really just operate on our studio side. So I don't really keep track of any of that stuff. But let me know which item is out of stock. And I'll have to check on that. Get somebody to check on that. Is it that Magnafoiler? I know we only brought in, I think, like 10 to 20 units as a first order because we were wanting to see if it was a good product or not. And I think that it's caught a little bit of steam. Oh, the Magnafoiler, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out on our website. I'm going to have to get a few more ordered. Yeah, that first order we placed was like 10 to 20 units. So that went pretty quickly, I think. And probably I would say this product is probably a winner. So it might be something we need to sort of regularly stock. Because I've had a good time using it. I think others will too. It's kind of the way that I like to test if I think a product's going to do well or not. See if I like it. Okay, Barbara, I appreciate that. You mentioned you'll wait for that. I'll check on that, see what's up. I think that, I know it's from creators. I think they have a pretty quick turnaround, so that is, you know, not the end of the world. Should be able to get it pretty quickly. Got a brown piece here, sort of a little wing or feathers or something like that. And our little panels coming together pretty nicely. And I've been thinking about the, what's that called? The Cricut Maker files. And I was thinking what I might do, add a little bit of extra value when I put the, what am I trying to say? Oh, when I end up putting all these patterns on to purchase for the Cricut Maker software, I'm going to add a little more value. I'm going to put it in 3 sizes. So we'll have the kit size, which will be the smallest. I'll have a medium size, and I'll have a large size. So just to, in case you wanted to make the pattern a little bit bigger, and instead of, you know, being tied down to whatever size I'm going to be using, you can, and I don't know if it's easy or not to scale up inside of the Maker software or not. I really don't know, but if it's helpful, I'll definitely do that because it won't be a huge deal on my end. And I haven't looked into it too much. I was talking to Valerie a little bit last week. I think that Valerie mentioned that the PDFs were a suitable file for the Maker software. Is that right? I just need to do the PDF or the SVG file. Just let me know, and I can sort of plan accordingly. And Valerie mentioned that we even beat the creators' price. Yeah, I think they have a suggested retail price, and I think we did a lot. I think theirs is what, $130, something like that, $125. I would definitely try to beat everybody's price if we can. All right. Got a little bit of a uneven stop point here. Just gonna trim that down. Make sure we've got a nice smooth copper foil edge. Because anything we do is gonna show in the solder. And Mary mentioned that she would appreciate that Adrian will include the Cricut patterns, SVG. Yes, I will include the Cricut patterns there. Let's see. I would appreciate that. Included patterns, SVG, PDF, and SVG work in Cricut. Okay, gotcha. I use Silhouette Vinyl Cutter. I can size patterns in the software. Okay, gotcha. So I'll probably do the SVG. I think that might. In fact, I could just do all of them. It really is not any extra work for me, if I'm being honest. Bobby, do you know if the Silhouette Vinyl Cutter you use works with PDF and SVG files? Let me know. And Valerie, I've gotten jagged cuts from the PNG file since they're low resolution. They are very low resolution on those. The ones from the, I guess it's the one that is linked in that pattern. I'm sorry, on the product. That one must be linking to those PNGs. Yeah, and I forgot why I did the PNG. I think that it was easier for people to print out, something like that. Sometimes the PDF would print a little bit weird. But as far as the Cricut cutter, it'll be a little bit better. And I've mentioned you can do JPEG, PDF, and SVG. Okay, that's helpful. Then I'll know. Probably I'll do the SVG then, because I think that's going to be the best bet for everybody. Or like I said, I'll probably do PDF and SVG, because the PDF, normally you'll be able to view it in the browser, so some people might like to see that. And the SVG, normally I don't think you can view it in the browser, but you know, the file names, you should be able to identify what's in there anyway. I'll make sure to name it something intuitive. And we've got our last piece here that we are burnishing. I'm going to go ahead and turn on our iron, get that heated up. And we can get to it. About to start our soldering here. And I think I might trim that eye a little bit more. It feels like it's just a little bit, maybe too big still. We've got our last piece that we're burnishing here. There we have it. All right. Get all these fit together nicely, and then we can take a look on the free camera, see how we did. I think this one goes a little bit more like this. And we'll decide if we need to cut that eye down a little bit more. I think it's all right, actually, now that I look at it. Take a quick, nice look here. This out of your way. So you've got everything. Looks to be fitting together pretty well. Got enough subtle little extra foil on the eyeball area, kind of just give that appearance. And we are going to go ahead and get to our soldering here. Get out our flux. And Valerie mentioned that the SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. So it can be scaled from postage stamp size to billboard without loss of quality. So that is very helpful for us to make that pattern whatever size you want, really. And as far as for the, you know what I might do now that I'm thinking about this? What's the best thing to do? I'm gonna have to keep thinking it over a little bit. I'm wondering if the best thing to do is to definitely send the SVG files for free as a part of the kit. And then maybe what I'll do is send them as a part if you purchase the pattern individually. So we'll send you one to your house, a physical pattern, and then you'll get all the files for free too. I'm gonna see if we can do that. I think that might be a good way to proceed. Sort of make everybody happy on all fronts, I think. All right. And you know, you can, if you don't want the, well, we'll see. I might do just the digital file too, because it'll be cheaper for y'all, not have to pay for shipping and all that stuff. So that might actually work out better. So I'll have to think it over a little bit more. And as usual, I like to wire brush off my little iron tip here. Make it look really brand spanking new. And then I pretty much got this exactly where I want it, so I'm just going to put a little bit of flux in the joints here. And just throughout, try not to move it around too much if I can avoid it. Sometimes the pieces are really tiny, it can be a little difficult to not move them around. There we go. Alrighty. Okay, now let me think about this. Okay, I need to get the solder, of course. And that should be the last thing that we need here. Go ahead and get started with our soldering. So, put our little fume extractor in position here. We're just going to try to delicately, got the little eyeball area first. Just leave that there. Get our beak all soldered up. And you can see that fume extractor just really absorbing all that stuff, which is what I like to see. Keeps it away from me, which is definitely something I like. There we have it. Got our duck all soldered together, little droplets here and there. Go ahead and get this pattern out of the way. We can see you can really see the white contrasting now with the brown and green compared to when it was just on the little white pattern. You couldn't really see it, but now you can see it a lot better. And hey Ella, thanks for joining us. Oh, you know what we're going to want to do is go ahead and flux up the rest of this. We did a little bit of flux. Now we're going to want to just kind of get it, make sure we got all our bases covered here. That's looking pretty good. And what I like to do is to get this looking as good as we can. I like to really put it on heavily on the perimeter. And we'll do a nice clean beads, as much as we can to start. And we're gonna probably have to touch all these up, not all of them, but many of them, since we still have to solder the backside. But if we have a good foundation, there's no reason not to do that, to just give ourselves a good foundation of nice, neat looking solder beads. And ideally you'll kind of keep it from a molten solder into a molten solder. Keeps the joints from sort of drying up or solidifying in a weird way. But sometimes it's just not possible. And you just do your best to kind of marry them up. Make them look as smooth as you can. That's the goal. You want it to have a nice rounded look. You don't want it to look flat or sunken in. Make sure to get all of our perimeters. Got a good group here today. Thank you all for joining. Always a pleasure to have everybody here and get a stained glass project done. And we're going to go back and probably put that eyeball on a little bit heavier. But for right now, we're just going to leave it as is. Okay, now this is good for our first side. We're going to go ahead and flip it over and do pretty much the same thing here. Get a lot of flux on there. And that's another thing. Whenever we have the bigger panels, it's quite a bit more foiling, it's quite a bit more burnishing, and quite a bit more soldering. So the soldering really goes by quickly with these tiny panels. It's just doing a little bit of handling during the cutting and grinding is kind of the hardest part. But it's got a lot of nice benefits. You don't use as much glass, so you can do more projects. You can also make more mistakes, so you have more glass to kind of keep giving stuff a try, which is helpful, especially for beginners. Doesn't take as much room on a table, so if you need to, sort of plan, if you don't have a big work area, might not be feasible to do a really big panel. Little work area I work with over here, it's maybe 3 foot deep by 4 foot wide. So it's a pretty small area. You can get quite a bit done in that small area. Now we're going to definitely want to go through and kind of marry up all these solder runs, make sure everything looks really good before we call it done. Make sure to get our perimeter all nice bead down if we can, as much as we can. Got our little yellow beak here. So we're going to want to make sure that we've got everything nice and smooth and looking the way we want it. It's much better. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to let it cool off a little bit, and then you can work on it again, because if it gets to be too hot, it'll just start running and never quite doing what you're intending to do. we go. That's looking pretty good there. Go through and I think what we're going to want to do here is go ahead and edge bead all of the perimeter. And this one's nice and small, so it fits really easily in the camera's view. What I like to do is put the solder up in a way I can just grab a little bit, and then I can just kind of, you know, put it onto the edge there. And sometimes it needs a little bit of flux. Let me go ahead and just put a little bit around the entire perimeter here. And we can just grab a little bit of solder here. And we've got a little bit on the edge already. There we go. Trying to get a nice rounded bead on the edge, just as much as the on the faces. That'll give it a nice bit of strength. I want to build this up right here a little bit more if we can. There we go. And Mary said, mistake when I called a teal duck, I meant a mallard duck. A drake to be exact. Gotcha. There are all kinds of ducks out there. And are you going to patina this? I am planning to patina it. And Ella mentioned that she turns her iron down to edge bead. That's a good idea. It'll make it a lot less runny, and it won't heat up as quickly. And I forgot who mentioned it last week, but someone mentioned you can also mix in a little bit of 50-50. And since 50-50 has a higher melting point, it will also kind of be a little bit harder to make it really runny and drip everywhere. So that's also really a nice tip too if you're having a hard time. And what I normally do is I kind of just tap it, and if it's so hot that I can't really work on it, I'll let it cool down. And then, you know, after a little bit of time, it normally cools down to a workable sort of temperature. So that's helpful. There we go. And we just about got to the starting point, I believe. And I don't know if your table looks like this with all these little solder droplets after you edge bead. Seems like every single time I do it, the whole thing is just filled with these little solder droplets. So I'm guessing that's pretty common. Believe it or not, I've never actually taught an in-person class. So I've only done these live streams. So hopefully everything is pretty informative. Now this is the back side. We're going to go ahead and call that good. I think everything looks pretty good. We've got the edges all done. We do want to probably touch up the front side a little bit. And actually, even before we finish, we're going to want to put our little hook on, because our duck has to be displayed proudly. We've got a nice, let's see if I can get a heavy kind of glob right there for the eyeball. Kind of a subtle thing. I might need to let it cool just a little bit longer. There we go. I'm going to leave that just like that. That I am happy with, and I just kind of dripped it on there. So I heated up that solder until it got hot enough to just sort of drip down, and the solder beneath it was still pretty much molten, so it linked up to it right when it touched. So we've got a good bond there. I'm just trying to get this all tidied up. I'm going to call that pretty much good there. And let's see. And if I was closer, make me give you an in-person class. That'd be pretty fun. And I'm teaching everybody every week. I appreciate that, Mary. That's my goal here. Just trying to spread the word on the stained glass. Get our little, I think we're going to put it right here on this little joint. That'll be a pretty strong spot. And this is actually our front side, so I'm going to flip it over, and I kind of do this little braided cable, just twist up a little wire, and I cut that down. I'm going to kind of put it in here. I want it to sort of be like this. So that's going to get really hot, so what I'm going to do, grab it with our little grozing pliers. Let's see if I can just barely get it. There we go. I'll do it just like that. And I'm glad to hear that you learned a lot there, Ella. It's my goal. Thanks for joining. Appreciate the effort everybody puts in, showing up and interacting in the community, and showing up to the live streams, and everybody talking on the live streams. I really appreciate that. Makes it feel a lot more lively, and so that I definitely appreciate. There we go. So I kind of just push it in there to that solder joint, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of extra solder, kind of smooth that out. Try to hide it as much as I can, and just try to kind of blend that big old glob into the rest of the panel, just like that. And we're pretty much done soldering. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the iron. Flip this over. I'm going to go ahead and get all this little solder droplets out of the way. All right. And we need to get that up at some point. For right now, we're going to go ahead and patina this. And Ella asks, does your family get mad at you for spending your Sundays with us? No. I'm all good. And Bobby, I enjoy watching you work and hearing all the comments. Oh, awesome. I'm glad to hear it. And we're gonna get a nice, still pretty hot, this little panel. It's, you know, that is one thing. When they're smaller like this, they retain that heat. So that is one thing to keep in mind. And one thing I actually forgot to do was to wire brush off all the little droplets of solder that sort of get shallowly stuck to the glass. I can just normally remove them with a little bit of hand pressure. Our little duck is coming out pretty good here. Got the little eyeball. Our little hook to hang it. So that worked out pretty good. So another project, everybody. I do appreciate you for joining us on the week number 1 of the October stained glass kit. Make sure to subscribe and check out the Stained Glass Mastery community. Get these patterns for free. And also, if you want to follow along with me, you can purchase the kit from our website. I'll leave a link in the shopping products here down below. And as always, I do very much appreciate y'all. Make sure to join us next week. We've got the bonsai tree. It's going to be a pretty fun project. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to that one, including myself. So make sure to join us next week for that. You can already tell we've got a nice brown for that trunk of that tree. We've got a nice green for the leaves. So it's going to come out to be a really nice project. And with just a little bit of cleaning here on our little duck, we are pretty much all finished up. So again, thank you all so much for joining the week number 1 of the October kit. We will see you next week for the week number 2. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.